Welcome to Scaling Legends, and today we are getting into a deep dive that really hits the core of your operations. If you are a construction business owner, you're always looking to scale your operations, protect your crew, and basically just stay ahead of the curves that catch your competitors totally off guard.
Right, absolutely.
But I want you to imagine spending like $15,000 to recruit and train top talent. You invest the capital, the time, the onboarding hours.
Which is a ton of time right now.
Exactly. It's massive. And then you hand them a piece of equipment on the very first day that virtually guarantees they will quit within 6 months.
Yeah, they just walk right off your site for good.
Right. And why? Because the gloves you handed them were so massive they couldn't even securely grip a drill. Their hard hat slid over their eyes every time they bent over to, tie rebar.
Or the high visibility vest just continuously snagged on scaffolding.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they didn't leave because they couldn't do the work. They left because they felt actively unsafe every single day.
Which is such a massive hidden leak in construction business operations today. It's a systemic failure happening right out in the open.
It really is.
And it's costing the industry the one resource it absolutely cannot afford to lose right now, which is capable workers. So for this deep dive, we're pulling from recent safety findings from Avetta and For Construction Pros, OSHA regulatory guidelines, and advanced project management intelligence.
Yeah, the mission here is to understand why standard operating procedures are driving away the exact talent companies are just desperate to hire.
Exactly.
It's like outfitting a deep sea diver with a leaky suit and then blaming them for wanting to get out of the water. You are pushing workers out with the very equipment that is strictly mandated to protect them.
Well, the reality on the ground actually backs up that leaky suit analogy perfectly. If we look at Smart Business Automator's market intelligence report, 77% of women in the trades report that their personal protective equipment simply does not fit properly.
Wow, 77%. That's huge.
Yeah, and 57% note that ill-fitting PPE makes their work physically more difficult to execute. But the metric that should really make every site superintendent pause is this 142% say it makes them actively less safe on the job.
Wait, 32% feel less safe because of the safety gear itself?
Yeah.
I mean, that is a profound operational failure. We are actively introducing hazards under the guise of compliance.
We really are. And the physical toll of that failure is entirely measurable, too. Smart Business Automator's Market Intelligence Report also details how injury tracking benchmarks reveal this severe disparity on the job site. Women in construction have a 3 times higher rate of musculoskeletal injuries compared to men working in similar roles.
3 times higher?
Yeah, the non-fatal injury rate sits at 3.4 per 100 full-time workers for women compared to 2.8 for men.
Okay, let's break down the mechanics of that. Why are musculoskeletal injuries spiking specifically? It can't just be the weight of the materials, right? Because these are trained professionals doing the exact same lifting as anyone else.
All right, it comes down to the biomechanics of compensation. When your gear doesn't fit, you alter your body mechanics to force it to work.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, think about the physics of just a simple work glove. A glove that is, say, a ½ inch too long at the fingertips completely destroys the natural lever action of the human hand.
Okay.
To maintain grip strength on a vibrating tower tool, the worker has to squeeze their hand exponentially harder just to compensate for the loose material.
Wow, so over an 8 to 10 hour shift.
Day after day. That overcompensation fatigues the forearms, strains the tendons, and leads directly to repetitive strain and severe musculoskeletal injuries. You are literally fighting your own equipment just to establish the baseline requirement of holding a tool.
Which brings us to the physical reality of the site. The lethal mechanics of standard gear. Oversized gloves aren't just an ergonomic nightmare, they destroy dexterity. I mean, how does a worker pick up a small screw or manipulate a delicate wire with an extra inch of thick leather flapping at the end of their fingers?
They don't.
Right, they don't. They take the glove off, and now you have an immediate laceration hazard.
Yeah.
Or they keep it on and lose their grip on a wrench while working on scaffolding, which creates a drop hazard that threatens everyone working below them.
Exactly. And hard hats present a really similar physics problem. A hard hat is essentially a suspension system for the skull. It's designed to absorb and distribute the kinetic energy of a falling object before it fractures the neck or the cranium.
Right, it needs that space to work.
Yeah, so if the internal suspension is sized for a larger head, it cannot be tightened securely. The hat slips forward, obstructing vision, which is obviously dangerous enough around heavy machinery.
Right, for sure.
But more critically, if an impact actually occurs, the hat bottoms out. The energy transfers directly into the skull instead of being dispersed, so it renders the protective shell virtually useless.
That is terrifying. And then we have the ubiquitous men's high-vis vests. Like on a smaller frame, the excess fabric doesn't just look sloppy, it bunches up.
It's a huge hazard.
Yeah. On a job site filled with spinning drill bits, moving skid steers, protruding rebar loose fabric is a severe entanglement hazard. You're basically putting a net on a worker and asking them to walk through a mechanical obstacle course.
You really are. And, those everyday items are just the baseline. The situation escalates dramatically when we look at life-threatening equipment like fall protection harnesses.
Right.
Standard harnesses are engineered using male pattern torso measurements. The geometry of the straps is designed to sit across specific structural points. When you place that standard harness on a female body, it inherently creates gaps, particularly around the chest and the pelvis.
Wait, if the physics of a fall harness rely on tight contact with the skeletal structure, a gap means the force of a fall is going to hit the soft tissue instead.
Right, exactly. A harness is engineered to catch a falling human being by distributing massive kinetic force across the strongest structural points of the body, the pelvic bone and the chest plate. If a harness leaves gaps or rides up because it doesn't fit a female frame, that energy distribution completely fails. During a fall event, the subpelvic strap can violently shift.
Oh, man.
Yeah. This means a piece of equipment explicitly mandated to save a life can cause catastrophic internal injuries, arterial damage, or even pelvic fractures simply because the straps impacted the wrong parts of the body.
I want to push back on the idea that this is just a sizing oversight, especially when we get into respiratory protection.
Oh, absolutely.
If a respirator isn't sized for a smaller, narrower face, it's going to leave gaps around the jawline or the bridge of the nose. Doesn't a gap fundamentally defeat its entire biological purpose? We aren't just talking about a strap riding up uncomfortably here if microscopic particles are getting in. We're talking about active daily poisoning.
We are. And honestly, the illusion of safety is often more dangerous than the absence of it. A respirator relies entirely on a hermetic seal against the skin.
Right, it has to be airtight.
Right. So if the mask is molded for a wider, longer face, it simply will not seal. When that worker is cutting concrete, the silica dust, which is microscopic and highly destructive to lung tissue, follows the path of least resistance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it bypasses the filter entirely and enters the lungs through the gaps at the jawline.
So the worker is wearing the mask. They feel like they are following protocol. The site manager checks the compliance box saying the worker is protected, but the worker is still breathing in silica dust every single time they inhale.
Exactly.
That is terrifying. It is literally toxic exposure happening under the guise of total compliance.
It is. And this pivots the conversation directly into the business case and the legal reality of the job site. If the human safety element doesn't force a structural change in how a business procures equipment, liability and growth bottlenecks absolutely will.
Yeah, they have to.
The construction industry is currently staring down a labor shortage of over 500,000 unfilled jobs. The older generation of master tradespeople is retiring, and companies are just scrambling to staff their projects.
Well, and women currently make up only about 4% of trades workers. But that number has grown by 52% since 2018.
Right, it's growing fast.
They are the single largest untapped labor pool in the market. Companies are spending vast amounts of money running recruitment campaigns to solve their labor shortage. But they are bleeding that talent because the job site is fundamentally hostile to their physical presence.
Exactly.
PPE is the most basic, glaring barrier to entry. If you can't outfit a worker safely, you can't staff your project. If you can't staff your project, you can't bid on larger contracts.
And the regulatory hammer is also actively swinging here. Business owners need to pay really close attention to the OSHA General Duty Clause, specifically Section 5A1.
What does that say exactly?
The phrasing in the regulations requires employers to provide PPE that properly fits each individual worker.
Each worker.
Yeah, it is not a blanket requirement to simply have a crate of gear in the job trailer. Providing gender-inappropriate PPE that leaves gaps, causes entanglement, or fails a fit test may directly violate this federal clause.
That distinction of each worker is a massive legal liability. If an OSHA inspector walks onto a site and sees a worker in a harness that clearly has a 4-inch gap off their shoulder, The company can't just point to a receipt showing they bought harnesses.
No, they could.
Gear must fit the specific biology of the person wearing it.
And state legislatures recognize this gap and are moving aggressively. States like California, New York, and Washington are currently considering legislation that would explicitly mandate the availability of gender-appropriate PPE on job sites.
Wow, so it's becoming actual law.
Exactly. The days of ordering 100 size large gloves and calling it a day are rapidly coming to an end.
Okay, let's talk about the margins, though, because I have to play devil's advocate for the business owner here. Procurement budgets are already stretched to the breaking point with material costs fluctuating.
Sure.
If women's-specific gear is specialized, aren't you asking business owners to pay a massive premium that will just destroy their project margins?
Actually, no. The financial logic points in the exact opposite direction. Tracking PPE compliance and benchmarking injury rates is rapidly becoming a critical financial metric for construction businesses.
Really? How so?
Well, properly fitting PPE reduces daily physical strain. It eliminates the mechanical drop hazards and entanglement risks we talked about. That directly reduces your recordable injury rates.
Right, so fewer injuries mean fewer workers' compensation claims.
Exactly. And fewer claims directly lower your workers' comp premiums, specifically your experience modification rate, or EMR.
Ah, the EMR.
Yeah. Your EMR dictates how much you pay for insurance. A high EMR from preventable musculoskeletal injuries can cost a mid-sized construction firm tens of thousands of dollars a year in increased premiums. Providing the right gear is not a charitable HR initiative. It is a direct strategy for protecting your profit margins and lowering your overhead.
Okay, we've diagnosed the blind spot. We know it is a safety crisis, a legal liability, and a massive financial leak that drains the bottom line. Let's shift into the practical application. How does a construction business owner actually fix this without halting operations? What is the 6-step strategy for scaling smart and stopping this leak today?
The immediate action starts right in your tool crib. Step 1. Audit your current PPE inventory today. Don't assume you know what's in there. Go look at the stockroom or the job boxes. How many women's-size fall harnesses do you actually possess?
Probably not many for most sites.
Right. How many size small gloves are readily available? How many fitted hard hats with adjustable suspensions? If that number is 0, your business is objectively not ready to hire women. You are setting up your next hire for failure before they even sign their W-2.
Okay, step 2, the next hurdle most owners hit is sourcing. There's this persistent myth that women's PPE is a niche market and impossible to find at scale.
Oh, totally a myth.
But the major supply chains are already building this out. We are talking about expanding lines from industry heavyweights companies like 3M, Honeywell, MSA Safety, Milwaukee Tool, and Carhartt. You don't need to hunt down a boutique manufacturer. You just need to demand these specific lines from your existing supply house reps.
Exactly. And then step 3, once the gear is on hand, it has to be integrated into the actual safety protocols. It's not enough to hand out the equipment and walk away. Fit verification needs to be a standard, documented procedure in your safety programs for every single worker.
Which leads to step 4. This has to happen during onboarding, day 1. Before a new hire ever steps foot near a trench or a scaffold, the safety manager must ensure every piece of equipment they are wearing actually fits their body. It needs to be as routine as checking their certifications.
Yes, and step 5 requires deliberate budgeting. Women's-specific PPE needs to be a dedicated line item in your procurement budget with its own general ledger code. Consider the current market context right now. Less than 5% of manufacturer catalogs feature women's-specific gear.
Only 5%.
Yeah. So if you don't actively seek it out and budget for it specifically, it will get lost in the general consumables budget, and you'll end up ordering the standard bulk sizes just out of habit.
Right. And step 6, the most direct step.
Yeah.
Talk to the crew. The women currently working on your site know exactly what isn't working. They know which gloves cause blisters and which vests get caught on the forms. Just ask them what they need.
It's that simple.
But, okay, I have to challenge this from an operational standpoint. I'm putting myself in the shoes of a growing construction business owner managing multiple active sites.
Okay.
You're asking me to track specific fit verifications for every single worker, document that fit perfectly, monitor specialized inventory levels for a smaller subset of my workforce, and update my safety protocols. For a growing business, doesn't this just add a massive mountain of administrative paperwork to a project management team that is already working 12-hour days?
Well, that administrative burden is a very real threat to scaling operations, I'll give you that. If your project managers are buried in clipboards and spreadsheets, they aren't managing the site, they're just doing data entry.
Exactly.
But scaling your business shouldn't mean drowning in administrative tasks. This is where the concept of modern project intelligence becomes absolutely indispensable. We are moving past the era of manual compliance tracking.
So how does project intelligence actually function on a dusty job site? What does that look like practically for the superintendent sitting out in the trailer?
Think about the administrative load of a daily log. A modern, automated project intelligence platform features specific PPE compliance modules. When a worker is onboarded, the system automatically tracks their fit verification.
Oh, that's handy.
But the real power is in the smart document organization. These systems can instantly categorize safety permits, submittals, and daily reports. They extract the critical details from project documents automatically. If a specific sizing requirement for a respirator is logged, the system tracks it.
So instead of a project manager sitting in the trailer at 6 in the evening, covered in dust, spending 3 hours typing up compliance logs, cross-referencing inventory spreadsheets, and organizing a request for information responses, the system is synthesizing that data.
It acts as an automated safety net. It can even surface budget variances or schedule risks without human prompting. If your dedicated procurement budget for specialized PPE is running hot, the system flags it early.
Wow.
If a worker hasn't had their annual respirator fit test updated, it generates an alert. By automating the heavy lifting of document intelligence, generating draft RFI responses, and compiling those daily log summaries, your project managers actually get their time back.
You are removing the bottleneck entirely.
Precisely. You automate the paperwork so the human beings can focus on what actually requires human judgment, the physical safety, health, and efficiency of the workers out on the steel.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
You know, when we zoom out and look at the macro perspective of the industry, the sheer scale of the opportunity here is staggering. The global construction PPE market is currently a $12.7 billion industry, and it is growing at a rate of 7.2% annually.
It's massive.
Yet, as we mentioned earlier, less than 5% of that massive market caters to women. That is a glaring billion-dollar gap.
Yeah.
But the tide is turning rapidly. The data from Google Trends shows that searches for construction safety have spiked by 131%. The industry is waking up. Workers know their worth, and they know what a safe site looks like.
They absolutely do. Adapting to this isn't about optics or checking a diversity box. It is about being operationally sound, legally compliant, and strategically smart enough to retain high-value workers in an industry facing a 500,000-person shortage.
Yeah.
Which really leaves us with a critical question to consider regarding your own operations. If you are unknowingly losing $15,000 investments over something as incredibly basic as the length of a work glove's fingers, what other standard operating procedures in your company are silently draining your profits and driving away the exact talent you need to scale?
That is the crucial question to ask yourself today. Don't let a leaky suit sink your best divers. Your immediate action item: pull your PPE inventory list before the end of the day. Check the sizing variations. If you have glaring gaps in women's sizing, fix them before your next hire ever steps foot on your site. If you found value in this deep dive, please subscribe to the show, rate, and review us. Share this with your colleagues, your supply house reps, or your project management team. And to learn how you can scale your operations, track these critical compliance metrics, and manage your projects without drowning in administrative paperwork, visit smartbusinessautomator.com. Stay safe out there, and we will see you on the next deep dive.